One of the least discussed lessons of the Korean War is that, honestly, more soldiers were incapacitated by waterborne illness than by enemy fire during several phases of the conflict. This was not due to ignorance. By 1950, armies already understood the dangers of contaminated water. The problem was that modern purification systems were not yet widely deployable at scale, and, logistical strain repeatedly forced troops to rely on methods that had changed little since World War II. The assumption that industrialized armies had solved water safety did not survive the realities of cold terrain, broken supply lines, and overstretched medical units. That oversight shaped military doctrine in ways that still influence survival planning today. If you value this kind of overlooked military history, where logistics, health, and survival matter as much as tactics, consider subscribing to Backyard Wisdom. This channel exists to examine the quiet systems that determined who endured and who didn't, long after the shooting stopped. World War II forced armies to treat water as a strategic resource, not a convenience. During World War II, access to clean water dictated movement, encampment, and even the timing of offensives. In North Africa, Eastern Europe, and the Pacific, water sources were often stagnant, polluted, or, even deliberately sabotaged. Soldiers could not assume streams were safe, and boiling water was not always practical due to fuel scarcity or the need to remain concealed. As a result, purification was treated as a frontline survival skill rather than a rear-area medical concern. The methods used were simple but deliberate. Chemical purification tablets, typically chlorine-based, were widely issued. Cloth filtration removed sediment but not pathogens. Boiling, when possible, remained the most reliable option. None of these methods were perfect, but they were understood, repeatable, and adaptable under pressure. Chemical purification in the 1940s was effective, but imperfect and slow. Chlorine tablets used during World War II were designed to kill bacteria and some viruses, not protozoa. Soldiers were trained to wait specific periods before consumption, often 30 minutes or more. Taste complaints were common, and some troops skipped treatment entirely, leading to outbreaks of dysentery and typhoid. What is often overlooked is just how disciplined these systems were. Manuals, really emphasized consistency over convenience. Water discipline was enforced by non-commissioned officers, not medics. This cultural emphasis genuinely mattered. The method worked not because it was advanced, but because it was integrated into daily routine. Boiling water was reliable, but it came with its own tactical and logistical risks. Boiling neutralized nearly all biological threats, but it required time, fuel, and exposure. Fires produced smoke. Metal containers clanged. In contested environments, these risks truly mattered. So, as a result, boiling was often reserved for rear positions or long halts, not rapid movement. The Korean War really reinforced this limitation. Cold weather increased fuel demands, while freezing conditions made boiling procedures even more complicated. The lesson was clear. The best purification method is not the most thorough, but the one that can be used consistently under real conditions. Cloth and sand filtration addressed visibility, not safety. Improvised filtration using cloth, sand, or charcoal was common during World War II, especially among resistance fighters and isolated units. These methods removed debris and improved taste, but they did little against microscopic threats. Yet they were still used because clear water was psychologically reassuring and allowed chemical treatment to work more effectively. This layered approach, filter first, disinfect second, would later become standard practice. Its origins lie not in laboratories, but in necessity. Modern purification systems, actually reflect the lessons learned during World War II more than most people realize. Even though today's water purification technology might seem radically different, We now have hollow fiber filters, ultraviolet pens, reverse osmosis systems, and chemical drops that all promise, well, near instant safety. Yet, the underlying principles really remain unchanged. Modern systems still rely on physical removal, chemical neutralization, or heat. The real difference, honestly, lies in their efficiency, portability, and how tolerant they are to user error. Modern filters are excellent at removing protozoa and bacteria, but often struggle with viruses unless they're combined with chemicals. UV systems work fast, but they depend on battery life and water clarity. Chemical drops are still reliable, but, well, they're slow. In other words, no modern method is universally superior. Each is only situationally appropriate. Testing old and new methods reveals trade-offs rather than winners. When World War II-era chlorine tablets are compared to modern purification drops, the results are, well, pretty instructive. Kill rates are similar, taste has improved, speed has improved modestly. Reliability remains tied to discipline. A forgotten treatment step still results in unsafe water. Likewise, modern filters outperform cloth filtration dramatically, yet they clog, freeze, or break. World War II soldiers understood equipment failure as inevitable and planned redundancy accordingly. Modern users often assume single-device reliability, an assumption history repeatedly warns against. The Korean War exposed what happens when doctrine outpaces reality. By the early 1950s, military planners believed waterborne disease was largely solved. Korean terrain and climate proved otherwise. Frozen filters, chemical shortages, and reliance on untreated snowmelt led to outbreaks that echoed World War II patterns. This forced a doctrinal shift. Water purification training became standardized. Redundancy was emphasized. Field manuals began treating hydration as a system, not a tool. These changes directly influenced modern survival training and emergency preparedness guidelines. Human behavior mattered as much as technology then, and honestly, it still does. The most consistent finding across World War II, Korea, and modern testing is that people tend to bypass systems they find inconvenient. Soldiers, skip tablets because of the taste. Civilians often ignore filters due to the hassle of maintenance. Survival outcomes really hinge not on theoretical effectiveness, but on compliance under stress. World War II armies compensated by enforcing routine. Modern preparedness culture, on the other hand, often relies on individual motivation alone. History suggests that systems succeed when they assume human error and build around it. So what these comparisons reveal is something, well, pretty significant about preparedness beyond just warfare. The history of water purification honestly teaches us a much broader lesson about resilience. Simple systems that work under stress often outperform complex systems that fail silently. Redundancy, it turns out, matters more than innovation. And, in the end, training matters more than equipment. World War II did not produce perfect solutions. It produced durable ones. Modern technology refines those solutions, but it does not replace the need for judgment, discipline, and adaptability. Why these lessons still deserve attention. Understanding how soldiers purified water under fire reminds us that survival is rarely about comfort or optimization. It is about continuity. Clean water enabled endurance, movement, and decision-making. Without it, armies stalled, units collapsed, and campaigns failed quietly. Remembering these systems matters because they sit at the intersection of health, logistics, and human behavior. They are not glamorous, but they are foundational. If you value this kind of historically grounded analysis, where past constraints illuminate present choices, subscribe to Backyard Wisdom and share this video with others who care about preparedness, history, and the practical lessons war continues to offer.